Welcome to Biblical Journey. Are you ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about the Bible? Before we dive into this mind-blowing discussion, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more revelations that will shift your perspective on biblical history. Trust me, today's topic will leave you questioning centuries of tradition and introduce you to an alternative narrative that has been suppressed for too long. Today, we're about to take a deep dive into a highly controversial subject, the Book of Enoch, its historical significance, and how it ties into the discussion about a black Messiah. Yes, you read that right, a black Jesus. But here's the kicker. This idea isn't just about modern reinterpretations of Christ's race. It's about hidden traditions, ancient prophecies, and a story that has been deliberately buried for centuries. What if I told you that the Bible, as you know it, has been edited, manipulated, and controlled to fit a narrative that hides the true identity of Christ? What if the Book of Enoch, one of the most powerful and mysterious texts ever written, contains clues that suggest Jesus, the Son of Man, may not have been the pale, fair-skinned figure we're used to seeing in art and literature, but rather a darker-skinned Messiah? Stick with us as we uncover this explosive revelation that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. Before we get into the controversy surrounding the Book of Enoch and the racial identity of Jesus, we need to understand what exactly this book is and why it has been so central to the debate. The Book of Enoch is a collection of ancient Jewish texts attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, who appears briefly in the book of Genesis. Enoch's mysterious departure from earth, where the Bible states, "And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him," Genesis 5:24, has intrigued theologians and scholars for centuries. Enoch's disappearance marks him as a unique figure in the Bible, someone who had a direct and intimate relationship with God. But the Book of Enoch expands on this brief biblical mention. It is made up of 5 major sections, focusing on themes like heavenly visions, angelic beings, and the judgment of the wicked. Its apocalyptic nature and descriptions of cosmic battles between good and evil make it both captivating and, to some, unsettling. It explores profound questions of divine justice, the origins of evil, and the final judgment, all of which have made it an important but controversial text. Despite its historical significance, the Book of Enoch was excluded from most biblical canons, especially in Western Christianity. In fact, church fathers such as Tertullian and Origen were familiar with it and even praised it, but over time it was relegated to the status of apocryphal literature, texts that were seen as outside the accepted canon. Some scholars suggest that the Book of Enoch was deliberately excluded because it didn't fit neatly into the developing theological system of Western Christianity. But what if there were other reasons for its suppression? The exclusion of the Book of Enoch from the Western Bible has puzzled many historians and theologians. Some argue that the book's apocalyptic visions and angelology were simply too controversial for early Christian authorities. Others claim that the exclusion was part of a larger agenda to centralize power and suppress alternative theological viewpoints. One of the most compelling reasons for its exclusion is the book's challenge to traditional Jewish and Christian theological ideas. The Book of Enoch contains elaborate descriptions of fallen angels and their corruption of humanity, which some church authorities found disturbing. Furthermore, its apocalyptic imagery, filled with visions of cosmic judgment, didn't align with the early Christian understanding of salvation and grace. However, there are also more political and racial reasons for its exclusion. In particular, many scholars suggest that the Eurocentric nature of Christianity in the West played a significant role in suppressing texts like the Book of Enoch. As Christianity became more institutionalized and intertwined with European empires, the faith began to reflect European interests and narratives. This included the portrayal of Jesus as a white European figure, a portrayal that would be challenged by African-centered texts like the Book of Enoch. While the Book of Enoch was gradually excluded from Western Christianity, it remained sacred scripture in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, one of the oldest Christian denominations in the world, has preserved the Book of Enoch as part of its Old Testament canon for centuries. This is not a small detail. The fact that Ethiopia has maintained the Book of Enoch in its scripture challenges the Eurocentric view of Christianity that has dominated much of the Western world. The Ethiopian connection to the Book of Enoch is also tied to the ancient history of Christianity in the region. Ethiopia's Christian heritage can be traced back to the Ethiopian eunuch in the New Testament, Acts 8, who was one of the first converts to Christianity. Ethiopian Christianity has always maintained a distinct identity, refusing to align itself with the colonial and Eurocentric narratives that have shaped Western Christian theology. Furthermore, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church has a long history of depicting biblical figures, including Jesus, with African features. In fact, Ethiopian Christian art often portrays Christ, the apostles, and the Virgin Mary with distinctly African characteristics, challenging the whitewashed images of Christ that have dominated Western Christianity. This raises an important question. Could the Book of Enoch, along with Ethiopia's tradition of depicting Christ with African features, hold the key to understanding a more accurate portrayal of Jesus' racial identity? One of the central figures in the Book of Enoch is the Son of Man, a divine figure who will come at the end of time to judge the wicked and deliver the righteous. The concept of the Son of Man has profound connections to Christian theology, particularly in the New Testament, where Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man on multiple occasions. But here's the twist. The Son of Man in Enoch is described with intense cosmic power and radiance, a figure whose appearance does not align with the typical Western portrayal of Jesus as a serene, fair-skinned figure. In 1 Enoch, chapters 46 to 48, the Son of Man is depicted as sitting on a throne of glory, judging the deeds of the wicked and delivering divine judgment. The text emphasizes the radiant light of this figure, with descriptions of his appearance that seem to clash with the fair-skinned depictions of Jesus found in Western art. In fact, some scholars argue that the fiery radiance associated with the Son of Man could be interpreted as an allusion to dark skin, as the imagery of blazing light and intense color is often associated with African depictions of divine figures. This is a powerful clue that suggests that early African Christians, especially those in Ethiopia, may have understood the Messiah not as a white or European figure, but as a divine being whose physical appearance reflected their own cultural identity. The idea of a black Messiah is not just a modern reinterpretation. It is rooted in the very fabric of early Christian tradition, particularly in African communities that have preserved the Book of Enoch for centuries. Stay tuned as we continue this journey through history and theology and explore how these ideas challenge the racialized portrayals of Jesus in Western Christianity. One of the most enduring and harmful myths that has shaped Western Christian views on race is the curse of Ham. This story, based on a passage in Genesis 9:25, claims that Ham, the son of Noah, was cursed by his father after Ham saw Noah's nakedness. The biblical text says, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." Over time, however, this curse was mistakenly applied to Ham, and by extension, all of Africa. The curse of Ham has been used as a justification for racial hierarchies and slavery, specifically to argue that Africans were destined for inferiority. This interpretation was taken to an extreme by European colonizers who sought to justify the enslavement and subjugation of African peoples. They twisted the biblical text to support their agenda, making it appear that Africans were cursed, and thus inherently suited to serve their European masters. For centuries, this interpretation dominated Western thought and was deeply ingrained in Christian theology. But let's take a step back and question this narrative. The Bible does not say that Ham was cursed, but rather that Canaan, Ham's son, was cursed. Moreover, the curse was not on all of Ham's descendants or all of Africa. This distorted reading of the Bible, however, became a powerful tool used by Western Christianity to justify the institution of slavery and the exploitation of African peoples. Interestingly, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which preserved the Book of Enoch, rejected this interpretation. Ethiopian Christians have long understood that there is no biblical basis for the curse of Ham affecting all Africans. In fact, Ethiopia's long-standing Christian tradition is a testament to the fact that Africa has always been an integral part of biblical history. This is where the Book of Enoch plays a significant role. It contradicts this Eurocentric narrative by preserving a vision of Christianity that includes African peoples in a central and honored place. At the heart of the racialized portrayal of Jesus in Western Christianity lies the image of the white Messiah, the fair-skinned, blue-eyed Jesus that has been dominant in European art and culture for centuries. This image, which is now ubiquitous in Western societies, was not based on the historical Jesus, but rather on a Eurocentric construction that served the needs of European colonialism. In the early centuries of Christianity, Jesus was likely depicted in ways that reflected the cultural context of the people who made the images. Ethiopian art, for example, portrayed Christ and other biblical figures with African features, while Middle Eastern depictions of Jesus would have shown him with Semitic traits. However, as Christianity became intertwined with European empires, the image of Jesus began to be whitewashed to reflect the European ideal. This whitewashed Jesus became a symbol of European supremacy, reinforcing the racial hierarchies that justified the colonization and enslavement of non-European peoples. The portrayal of Jesus as white was not just a matter of artistic preference, it was a political decision. By presenting Jesus as a white European figure, colonial powers sought to align themselves with divine authority and spiritual power. This image of Jesus was used as a tool of domination, reinforcing the idea that European cultures were superior and that non-European peoples, including Africans, were inferior. This historical development was not without its consequences. The image of the white Messiah became so entrenched in Western Christianity that it began to shape people's perceptions of race, identity, and spirituality. For African communities, the dominance of the whitewashed Jesus had a profound impact. It made it difficult for many Black Christians to see themselves in the Bible and in the Christian tradition. In stark contrast to the whitewashed Messiah that has dominated Western Christianity, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church has maintained a vision of Christianity that is deeply rooted in African identity. The Church's long-standing tradition of African-centered Christian art and biblical interpretation stands as a resistant force to the racialized portrayals of Jesus in European Christian theology. In Ethiopian art, Jesus is often depicted with dark skin, curly hair, and African features. This portrayal is consistent with the Church's understanding that Jesus, like the people of his time, was likely to have been Middle Eastern in appearance, likely with darker skin and features that reflected his Jewish heritage. But in the Ethiopian tradition, Christ is not simply a Middle Eastern figure. He is an embodiment of divinity that transcends racial and ethnic boundaries, while still honoring the African context of the Church. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church's embrace of the Book of Enoch as part of its canon also highlights the African Christian community's long-standing commitment to preserving an authentic and inclusive view of the biblical narrative. By preserving the Book of Enoch, Ethiopia rejected the idea that Africa had ever been on the periphery of biblical history. Instead, Ethiopia has kept alive the memory of early Christian traditions that celebrate Africa's central role in the history of salvation. This alternative tradition within Christianity challenges the colonial and Eurocentric narratives that have dominated Western Christianity. It asks us to rethink the way we view Jesus, the Bible, and the history of Christianity. Could it be that the early African Christians, who revered the Book of Enoch and depicted Jesus with African features, were closer to the authentic understanding of Christ's identity than the Eurocentric traditions that have prevailed for centuries? In recent years, there has been a revival of interest in the Book of Enoch. Thanks to the internet, the work of scholars, and the efforts of African and African American Christians, the Book of Enoch is making a comeback in popular consciousness. More people are beginning to question the exclusion of this powerful text from the Western Bible, and they are rediscovering the richness of the African Christian tradition that preserved it. The Book of Enoch has sparked conversations about the racial identity of Jesus, the role of Africa in biblical history, and the ways in which colonial powers used religion to justify their exploitation of non-European peoples. It's no longer just a curiosity for scholars. It has become a catalyst for a broader discussion about the truth of Christian history and the need for reconciliation with the African roots of the faith. The growing interest in the Book of Enoch is also tied to a larger movement to reclaim African Christian identity. This movement is about more than just the historical accuracy of biblical texts. It's about reclaiming the narrative that has been distorted by Eurocentric interpretations. It's about rediscovering the truth of who we are as African Christians and how our heritage has been overlooked or suppressed for centuries. In many African American and African Christian communities, the Book of Enoch has become a symbol of spiritual liberation, a text that reconnects them to their biblical heritage and identity. It is a reminder that Africa has always been an integral part of Christian history, and that the true story of Jesus cannot be whitewashed or racialized by any single cultural perspective. As we come to the conclusion of this eye-opening journey, one question remains at the forefront. Why has the racial identity of Jesus been manipulated, and what does this mean for us today? The whitewashed Jesus, so deeply embedded in Western Christianity, is not just a misrepresentation of Christ's physical appearance, but a tool that has been used for centuries to support racial superiority and imperial agendas. The distorted portrayal of Jesus as a fair-skinned European figure has had lasting consequences, not only for theology, but also for people's spiritual identity and sense of belonging. The whitewashed Messiah is not a neutral depiction. It's a political decision that aligns with colonial and imperial interests. By portraying Christ as a white figure, Western powers could maintain the narrative that Europeans were the chosen people and that other races, particularly Africans, were inferior and destined to serve. This racial theology was used to justify the enslavement and subjugation of entire populations. But the truth is, the historical Jesus was not a European figure. He was a Middle Eastern man, likely with dark skin and Semitic features, living in a region that was anything but European. The early Christian tradition, especially in Africa, understood Jesus in this way. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which preserved the Book of Enoch, has long held a vision of Christianity that embraces African identity and sees Jesus not as a foreign figure, but as one who shares in the struggles and experiences of African and Middle Eastern peoples. So why should the Book of Enoch matter to us now? In our modern world, history and identity are more important than ever. For centuries, African peoples were told that they were on the margins of biblical history, their contributions to the faith erased or ignored. But the Book of Enoch tells a different story. It shows that Africa was never on the periphery of Christianity, it was at the center. Ethiopia, the land that kept the Book of Enoch alive, has always played a vital role in the history of salvation. By reclaiming the Book of Enoch, we not only rediscover an important piece of Christian history, but we also reclaim the authenticity of the African Christian tradition. We challenge the Eurocentric narrative that has dominated Christianity for centuries and begin to embrace a faith that reflects the true diversity and richness of the biblical story. The Black Messiah is not a modern invention. It has always been a part of the faith, preserved in African traditions and now brought back into the light. The Book of Enoch offers a vision of Christ that is both cosmic and earthly, a vision that challenges the whitewashed Messiah of Western Christianity. In the Son of Man described in Enoch, we see a figure of radiant light, a divine being who will come to judge the wicked and deliver the righteous. This image of Christ transcends racial boundaries and reflects a deeper understanding of his divine nature. But the Book of Enoch is not just about history or theology, it's also about empowerment. For African Christians, it is a reminder that their faith has always been deeply connected to the biblical narrative. For generations, African communities have been told that they were inferior or marginalized in the eyes of God. But the Book of Enoch, along with the Ethiopian tradition, offers a powerful counter-narrative that Africa is not on the margins, but at the heart of God's story of redemption. It's time for us to take action and reclaim our spiritual heritage. The Book of Enoch is not just an ancient text, it is a living testament to the rich, diverse, and inclusive nature of Christianity. It challenges us to rethink the way we view Jesus, the Bible, and the history of Christianity. It reminds us that the racial identity of Christ is not something to be manipulated or controlled by any group, but a reflection of the divine that transcends all human categories. So what can we do with this newfound knowledge? Here are some steps we can take. 1. Explore the Book of Enoch. Dive into this ancient text, read it for yourself, and discover the mysteries and prophecies that it holds. Many modern translations and commentaries are available, and they can give you deeper insight into its meaning and significance. 2. Engage with African Christian traditions. Take a closer look at how the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and other African Christian communities have preserved their faith, and learn about their theology, art, and traditions. These communities have maintained a vision of Jesus that is deeply African, and it can offer us a more authentic understanding of Christ's racial identity. 3rd challenge, the whitewashed narrative. As individuals, we have the power to reclaim the true image of Christ. By recognizing the diversity in Christianity, we can challenge the Eurocentric images of Jesus that have dominated Western Christianity for centuries. We can create and share art, media, and theology that reflects a more inclusive and authentic portrayal of Jesus and the Christian tradition. 4th, share your knowledge. Talk to others about the Book of Enoch, the Black Messiah, and the true African roots of Christianity. By sharing this knowledge, we can begin to change the way people understand the biblical story and Jesus' identity. The Book of Enoch and the Black Messiah are not just historical curiosities, they are living, breathing realities that have the power to transform how we understand Jesus, the Bible, and Christianity itself. By embracing the African-centered vision of Christ and rediscovering the Book of Enoch, we reclaim a more authentic and inclusive Christianity, one that reflects the true diversity of God's creation. So I encourage you today to take action. Read the Book of Enoch, explore its mysteries, and share its message with others. Let's move forward with a vision of Christ that is true to his divine nature and his place within the larger story of humanity. A story that includes every race, every culture, and every people. Thank you for joining us on this biblical journey. If you've been moved by today's video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with others who might find it inspiring. Let's continue this conversation and uncover more hidden truths together. See you next time on Biblical Journey.